The following is an in-depth story analysis. If you haven't seen Dexter, you may want to watch the first 4 seasons before watching this video.
You give me the fucking creeps, you know that, Dexter?
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Fuck you.
In 2004, Jeff Lindsay released Darkly Dreaming Dexter, a crime thriller novel detailing the strange life of serial killer Dexter Morgan. 2 years later, the story was adapted for the small screen in Showtime's hit series Dexter, quickly becoming a premium cable juggernaut and the flagship show of the network. Prestige television focusing on anti-heroes had been on for a while, but with the incorporation of pulpier elements, kinetic cliffhangers, and a police procedural framework, Dexter managed to hit things off with more mainstream audiences. Not an easy task considering in the world of adulterers, drunkards, murderers, and drug dealers, a serial killer with no human emotions is probably the anti-ist of all the anti-heroes. But you know what they say about the candle that burns twice as bright? Well, comparable shows that began around the same time, most notably Breaking Bad, floundered in the ratings for years before making a big splash when they came to streaming services. Dexter continued to be a commercial success its entire run, but less so a critical one. The 2010s saw the stars of many anti-hero thrillers rise, while at the same time the once trailblazer Dexter was going down in flames, culminating in what the show is perhaps most remembered for nowadays, having the worst series finale of all time. Possibly in an effort to have this unwanted accolade in the Guinness Book of World Records transferred from their series to Game of Thrones, Dexter is coming back for a one-off miniseries this fall. Before we get to whatever the hell that's gonna be, let's take a look back at the run from 2006 to 2013. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This is Dexter. Dexter is a crime thriller set in the fictional city of Miami, Florida, about forensic analyst Dexter Morgan. Something is wrong with Dexter. He has no human emotions, only a primal need to kill people in a strange ritual where he straps them to a table, slices them into pieces, then deposits the body in the ocean. Dexter's adoptive father, Harry, noticed the darkness inside him and taught Dexter 2 things: how to find other killers who most deserve to be killed so the innocent don't have to suffer, and how to not get caught. Not getting caught involves a careful balancing act of appearing as normal as possible, despite every human emotion being feigned, which would get Dexter into trouble when it comes to his love life if he wasn't dating abuse victim Rita. Due to her trauma, Rita reads their initially asexual relationship as courtesy rather than something to be suspicious of. At Dexter's day job, we get the majority of our B stories, following the whodunits and love triangles of his Miami Metro PD co-workers. There's foul-mouthed tomboy Deb, who is Dexter's adoptive sister, sleazy comic relief Masuka, cowboy cop hard-ass Dokes, the dictionary definition of a quote-unquote nice guy Angel, idiot liability LaGuerta, and idiot liability Quinn. For much of the first season, all the relationship stuff feels like it's trying to put the audience in Dexter's shoes. Dexter does not care about their personal lives, but has to pretend to so nobody looks at him twice. I didn't care about it a lot of the time either. I love the way people will present their emotional issues and personal problems to him hoping for sympathy, and he'll just respond with, "Oh, finally a character I can relate to."
Had a little too much to drink, so I gave him a ride home.
He doesn't live here anymore.
Oh.
I thought the show was doing something clever in season 1, making us feel that distance he feels by having coworkers prattle on about their love lives and little cutaways while we've got bigger fish to fry, then giving us similar sequences with Deb where she genuinely connects with them. That way we can see the soul Dexter himself is missing. But since every other season dives into love triangles and will they won't theys in earnest, maybe I was giving the show a little too much credit. What I could never give too much credit to is Michael C. Hall's performance as the titular lead. Dexter has no empathy, but he's more like an animal than a robot. When he's putting on a ruse and fooling everyone, it's exciting, and when he's trying to fit in and failing, it's funny.
Next thing will be stealing our women. Can't let him steal our women now, can we?
No, they're our women.
So yeah, even when the later writing gives him some pretty impossible material to work with, Hall's performance remains exceptional for the entire run. As far as B stories go, you'd think the side investigations they engage in would be more appealing, but that's not always the case. A vast majority of them are catch the perpetrator of a drug-related murder. Drug-related murder is total insert villain here shit, and on top of that, a lot of these culminate in gunfights that distract from the stakes of the Dexter A plot. I want to feel the contrast between the harsh but grounded lives of these officers and the violent, sick life of Dexter Morgan, but everyone seems to be killing people extrajudicially pretty much all the time anyways.
What are you gonna do, Mr. Policeman? You're gonna shoot me in my own club?
The A story is where all the action is. Most seasons follow a similar structure. Dexter gets close to a killer with the intention of either connecting with them personally or learning from them. Tits inevitably go up, and the final run of episodes each season is a game of cat and mouse between Dexter and a dastardly rival. Based on that structure alone, you might think the quality of a Dexter season is similar to the quality of a Batman film, dictated more or less by the quality of the villain.
Was that over the top? I can never tell.
That isn't the case. In fact, it's sort of the opposite. Whatever lessons and connections Dexter is going through over the course of the season is what the show lives and dies on, and the killers are either the cherry on top or the nail in the coffin. In season 1, our juicy, plump maraschino cherry on top is the ice truck killer. Draining the blood of his victims and putting the parts on display, Dexter takes up a fascination with the killer that is only amplified when the killer breaks into his condo and shows he's interested right back. The ice truck killer leaves bizarre and grotesque references to Dexter's childhood at crime scenes, which unbeknownst to the rest of the department is dredging up repressed memories of the murder of his mother that made him the monster he is today.
I think this is a friendly message, kind of like, hey, wanna play? And yes, I wanna play. I really, really do.
As the series progresses, we learn the ice truck killer is Deb's new boyfriend, Rudy, mercifully revealed early on so the writers don't have to keep pretending to care about the Harlequin romance between the two. That way we can instead focus on what they do best, getting as much ITK being a creep mileage as possible.
I never wanted to hurt you.
I know.
Just make it easier for you because I can keep going.
In the season finale, the ice truck killer reveals himself as Dexter's older brother, who was much less successful at repressing the traumatic event that made them both murderers. After a whole season of Dexter being an island, it's a fitting final choice to present him with. Kill your adoptive sibling and run away with your real one, or kill your brother, the only person in the world who will ever understand you, and live the lie forever. Sorry, ITK, the writers of Dexter are sorta married to the conventions of procedural television, so even if you get away with it and keep in touch in the books, you were doomed from the start on the boob tube. It's a fun little thriller. The revelations are deftly paced, so almost every episode gets either a big hook at the end or a big gotcha in the middle. That being said, if you've never seen it before, I can't help but feel like I've done you a disservice by spoiling it a moment ago. A lot of the early going eeriness is predicated on you not knowing who the ice truck killer is or what his intentions are. Going back to rewatch with the knowledge of the twist ending, you realize basically everything the ice truck killer did up until icing Dexter's bio dad and soaking that hotel room in the blood of his collective victims to trigger a flashback was all so much faffing about. All that stuff is in the last third of the season, and everything prior to it doesn't get recontextualized all that much on a rewatch. I mean, what does leaving a corpse on the ice of the Miami Blades have to do with your mom being chainsawed in a shipping container?
What do you think he's trying to tell us?
That hockey's a violent sport.
Still, I'd say season 1 is definitely both worth watching and rewatching if it's been a while. Ditto for its follow-up, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's hop over to season 2. Dexter Season 2 is structured very differently from what came before and what is to follow, not that we knew it at the time. Instead of a new killer coming to town, the killer this season is Dexter, known to the public as the Bay Harbor Butcher after his deep-sea dumping ground is discovered by divers. Rather than tracking down a villain, the name of the game this year is evading capture when rockstar FBI agent Frank Lundy comes to town.
First report from the field had these parts as coming from one body.
Actually, it's two.
Actually, it's two.
Uh-oh.
Throw the determined Detective Dokes, who has had it out for our favorite blood spatter analyst, into the mix, and you've got a season that quite effectively puts Dex on the ropes. While episodic in nature, the majority of Season 2's run has a strong through line, with each episode requiring Dexter to slip the noose by the skin of his teeth as the department closes in. Lundy's got a cool tent for the bodies, he's tracking algae on the rocks weighing the bags down, he's got cameras on the marina with footage of Dex on them. When Dexter tries to be cute and stall the cops with a deliberately misleading manifesto, Lundy is able to twig that the Butcher is trying to mislead them and correctly deduces the Butcher is law enforcement. Each episode presents a new avenue of discovery that Dexter has to stay one step ahead of.
The full force of the FBI. That's the last thing I need. I've got to make sure Lundy gets his man. After I figure out a way to erase the Marina files and make up with my girlfriend. And then maybe I'll tackle world hunger because things can't really get much worse.
Dexter Morgan is sometimes pitted against villains that are too dumb to take seriously, but this battle of wits in Season 2 does the smart thing and gets him in situations so desperate there's no room for clever solutions, and the only options are brute force. It sells the audience on how dire the circumstances are while also being darkly amusing.
That's my Marina. And in less than 30 minutes, I'll be on that screen. What would the old Dexter do? Definitely not that.
As the season nears its end, things reach an incredible boiling point with Dokes, but Lundy kinda runs out of steam. In a bizarre turn of events, Deb and Lundy fall in love. It left me turning my head a bit because Lundy seems to be slotting into the role of father figure. After the series had done the groundwork to establish that Deb was always distant from her cop father Harry, it would have been a nice arc to have kindly Agent Lundy serve as the role model she never had. Whatever. I'm not as grossed out by the May-December romance as others. I mean, hey, Lundy actually has a personality, unlike most of Deb's other boyfriends throughout the series, who all basically boil down to handsome guy with a very obvious conflict of interest. So it's still one of the more endearing pairings of the series, but since Dexter rarely did romance even competently, that's saying very, very little.
Considering our age difference, you're not too old to spank.
No, stop, please. I can't control myself. Oh my God!
Not only are Lundy's eyes on Deb now, but his storyline is too. We spend the last few episodes with him helping Deb stand up for herself and wondering where the relationship goes when the case ends. Oh, hi Mike.
You are not the guy. You're not capable of being the guy.
Well, it was fun while it lasted, Lundy. You were a worthy adversary. Till Deb stole all your mana. On the topic of mana thievery, back in Dexter's world, his girlfriend Rita has caught on to his constant disappearances and demands answers. She offers up a very convenient excuse to Dexter. You're a heroin addict, aren't you? Yeah, sure, says Dexter, so he goes into fake treatment with the aid of real sponsor and manic pixie dream girl Lila. She is unknowingly helping Dexter to actually overcome his murder addiction, with heroin as a proxy, but it doesn't take too long before he realizes she is less of a manic pixie dream girl and more of a maniac pixie dream girl. After a few sloppy hookups with Dexter, she's willing to stalk, manipulate, and blackmail to worm her way as deep into his life as she can. I don't care for this character. She's definitely meant to be a love-to-hate character, but it's telegraphed way too blatantly, too early on, and it just makes Dexter look like a sucker.
You know, insurance companies, anything to keep from paying out.
Yeah, especially when a fire has multiple points of origin. Is it possible she started that fire on purpose?
Yes. Obviously. For a man who's supposedly dead below the waist, hitching your horse to Lila because you like the look of her wagon is the kind of idea that gives a bad idea the will to live. So naturally, Angel, renegade idiot, does it later too, with an equally predictable outcome. With the unexpected aid of his sister's distracting cans, Dexter is able to outsmart Lundy, but by the back third of the season, Dokes has stumbled on the truth.
Jesus Christ, Morgan. Jesus fucking Christ, you're the Bay Harbor Butcher.
I really hate that name.
Jesus Christ, man.
You said that.
So Dexter takes Dokes hostage and goes to work on a frame job, with one uncomfortable reality hanging over both of them. No matter how good this frame job is, Dexter is either going to have to let Dokes go and potentially face the music, or kill him, dishonoring his father's code to never harm the innocent. Dexter's quid pro quo chats with Dokes, where Dex learns he's responsible for his father Harry's suicide, are some of Hall's best performances on the show. When the mask slips, it isn't a weepy, boo-hoo, I'm a weirdo mask slip. He seems to take almost perverse glee in framing a man and rubbing his face in it, like he's venting all his frustrations about the year evading the law on the first innocent person unlucky enough to catch him. Hall definitely sells us on why Dexter really should be worried to never let his loved one see behind the mask.
It boiled down to a philosophical question. Which one of us has more inherent worth?
I know you're fucking kidding me.
In the finale, the cops narrow down the neck of the woods Dokes is being held in, but at this point they assume Dokes is the Bay Harbor Butcher, so the race is on. Dexter has to outrun the cops in a trek through the swamp to his cabin to either free or kill Dokes before they find him in a cage and start asking who put him there.
Waiting out there in the Everglades are hordes of county sheriffs, search parties, and ravenous reptiles. And in this corner, wearing dark trunks, the mighty Dexter.
Oh, hell yeah. Now that sounds like a finale. A race against time, untold dangers, and an ultimately painful choice Dexter will have to make that will determine who he really is. Except don't get too excited, because while Dexter thinks he's in a do-or-die situation, we the audience know it's already over. In the cold open of this very episode, Lila found the cabin, learned Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher, was totally cool with it, and blew the place up with Dokes inside. So, that's it for the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation, and the hostage plot, and Dexter's moral choice. With 50 minutes of the season to go, should we all, go home early? So yeah, Instead, the finale is tying up loose ends. Lila asks Dexter to run away with her. He's like, okay, sure, but actually just plans to kill her. Then she figures that out, pops Dexter and Rita's kids in an easily escapable and overly elaborate exotic death trap, then gets stabbed by Dexter weeks later in Europe. That's 2 series I've covered in a row where a former lover and con artist named Lila abducts the child of the main character. If anyone knows a third, let me know and we can go for the hat trick. There's a point where Lila pretends she's going to tip the police off to Dexter's lies, but he deduces it's a diversion, and her real intention is the death trap thing. Should have gone with the opposite. Dexter in a death trap may be schlocky fun, but there's no risk of shaking up the status quo. Having even a tiny sliver of his secret revealed to plant the seeds for his eventual exposure means much, much more to the show. And that really seems to be the direction the show is heading. Dexter is so smug about getting away with everything scot-free at the expense of an innocent man, a character we, the audience, also liked, that it borders on a double subversion that nothing happens at the last minute. I was totally expecting a Leaves of Grass in the toilet scene where the audience goes, oh shit, somebody figured it out, and then credits. It's a disappointing finale. In fact, so disappointing that even knowing what was coming, it put me in a bad mood for like an hour during my rewatch of the series. But the most disappointing thing is that Dexter didn't have to make a choice about killing Dokes. It's like one of those telltale choose-your-own-adventure games. You are presented with choices and given the option to make one, but a lot of them play out the same way regardless of your input, which can be fun for a video game because the point is you're thinking about the moral implications and possible repercussions. You eventually have to push that button. Should we rob this car for food and supplies? Well, we're actually going to rob the car regardless of what you, the player, say, but I bet you mulled it over really hard, right? This doesn't apply to scripted television. It's not exciting that Dexter thought about breaking his code if you cheat us out of him actually having to make the choice. So that's it for season 2. Lundy's just like, I know we said we wouldn't leave after the case, but bye. Another moment that makes me wish he was a mentor figure and not a lover. Instead of handing Deb a note that says you are Deborah Morgan as his train departs, it's a Poochie ending.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Let us go now, too. Over to season 3. Season 3 kicks off with a botched hit where Dexter has to kill a man who was in the wrong place at the wrong time in self-defense. As this is his first kill against the code of Harry, there's a bit of a worry it'll open the floodgates to greater murderous indulgence in the future. Sort of like when you're an alcoholic and you realize you don't have to wait to nighttime to hit the bottle. You can totally just day drink.
I've never thought about drinking in the day before. What's more fun than a couple of nice cold beer skis? What's depressing about that? Nothing. You can't be depressed when you're pissed. It's not possible.
This murder also threatens to bring the hammer down on Dexter, since it turns out his unlucky victim is the brother of beloved Assistant District Attorney Miguel Prado, played by Jimmy Smits. In case you think we're just going to rehash last season, don't worry, we're not going for another investigation. Instead, this season, Dexter makes a friend. Miguel plots to kill the man he assumes killed his brother, but Dexter unknowingly beats him to the punch and gets caught in the process. Assuming they both share a forbidden desire for vigilante justice, Miguel does his best to make Dexter open up by showing him he doesn't have to hide the darkness inside him when they're together. As Miguel puts the pieces together and realizes this is more of a hobby than a one-off thing for Dexter, Miguel requests to be brought along for the ride, offering to use his connections as an ADA to make the job easier. Miguel's a fun character, probably my second favorite guest performance in the series. He's affable and competent, but does a poor job of hiding his emotions, even if they never boil over into outright violence, which kind of makes him a foil to Dexter. They're both charmers, and it seems to be an act for both of them, but while Miguel vents and fumes and apologizes after, Dexter just bottles it up until, well, after. Dexter initially tries to scare Miguel off the same way he did his father by showing him the gross realities of his vigilantism. But unlike dearly departed dad, Miguel doesn't reject Dex or flee in fear. If anything, he gets a little too excited.
What did it feel like to take him out? To end his life?
It's cute having someone else enter Dexter's world. We get to see all the rookie mistakes, we get amusing little how-tos from Dexter that serve as a behind-the-scenes tour of stuff we just took for granted in earlier seasons. And I like the touch that Dexter starts to make some of his internal monologues external. Dexter's internal monologue is all about the wordplay, similes, and puns when he's on the hunt, and it's like the shy kid making a funny joke in class when he's able to speak them out loud to Miguel instead.
Where slot machines go to die, huh?
At least one gambler.
Of course, we're not going to be blasting You're My Best Friend by Queen all the way through the finale, so Dexter and Miguel have a falling out. Specifically, Miguel has a raging murder boner for amoral defense attorneys and corrupt police officials who he sees as the root of the problem, while Dexter just wants to stick to murderers. Dex does mull the idea over, but when he ultimately declines, Miguel takes matters into his own hands. I think this is a big missed opportunity, given what seeds the writers have been planting this season. Dexter violates Harry's code multiple times this season, each time commenting on how it's a violation. He kills an innocent man in self-defense, then he kills a pedophile who took pictures of his daughter, and he euthanizes a family friend who was in hospice. Again, another reason he should have had to kill Dokes personally in season 2. Make that the event that starts the murder ball rolling. So when Miguel proposes the two move up the chain and attack the source of the problem, I think the smarter choice would be to have Dexter so high on his own supply that he actually goes through with it. Make Dexter an actual tool of murder, and his fury at realizing Miguel's been manipulating him in the third act would be all the more potent.
Miguel! 9 holes tomorrow?
You bet.
Instead, what? Miguel used him to learn how to discreetly buy zip ties and plastic wrap? Seems like at the very worst he just sort of learned from Dexter rather than outright exploiting him. It's not the only missed thematic opportunity. There's an episode-ending scene early on while they're becoming BFFs where Miguel speaks about his brother and how he became the man he is today. And I'm waiting for Dexter to reveal to someone, finally, that his brother was the ice truck killer. Just a few quick lines to show us Dexter really is opening up, that he really trusts Miguel more than anyone else. Again, would have made the betrayal more meaningful later, but instead, he clams up. When Miguel realizes he can't control Dexter, and Dexter realizes Miguel won't stop killing, the battle is on to start outclassing the other assassin.
I am the last person you want to fuck with, because I will fuck you back in ways you never even imagined.
Dexter gets the drop on Miguel and takes him out, but not before Miguel is able to recruit secondary villain the Skinner to bring Dexter's life to a painful end. I won't spend more than a sentence on the Skinner. As I mentioned earlier, drug-related killer is insert villain here shit, and tacking on a shockingly violent MO does not a compelling character make. That said, my favorite cliffhanger gag the show ever pulled was Dexter getting kidnapped, presumably by the Skinner, only to reveal the next episode that it was for his bachelor party. Speaking of Bachelor Party, let's look at the side plots this season. More than any of the ones before, things are getting very sitcom-y. Dexter is getting married and he and Rita are having a baby. I used to think Rita was written as weirdly changeable in these arcs, but when I first watched this season I hadn't started dating yet. I understand women a little better now.
Yeah, I just heard a love song on the radio that reminded me of you.
Oh, that's sweet.
It made me really angry.
Oh.
The Miami Metro subplots run the gamut, with some of the lamest, but also some of the strongest in the series as a whole, which is, again, not saying much. Masuko realizing nobody respects him because he's such a perv, getting depressed, and then attempting to rehabilitate his image, is an amusing little out-of-character storyline running in the background. I always love those. The end of the arc, where he realizes despite his sleaziness he's still a competent investigator, is played a little bit too sincere for my taste, but it's endearing nonetheless.
That's not opinion, that's science. And science is one cold-hearted bitch with a 14-inch strap-on.
Guess I'm gonna have to order an I fucking love science t-shirt after all. One of the more memorable subplots involves Dexter euthanizing family friend Camilla. I know some people like this one. Personally, I found it a bit overwrought, but I don't have the relevant life experience to really connect to this one, so I'll just move on. On the terrible front, we have Angel getting busted by an undercover cop while trying to bang whores, then trying to get a date with said cop using that as a meet cute. And succeeding. Do I honestly need to say more? And finally, we welcome Quinn to the cast in the most ham-fisted way possible. You know when a show adds a new character that the writers want you to like, but instead of making you like them because of what they do, they just have the other characters all talk about how cool and smart and awesome the new guy is? That's Quinn. They call him the Witness Whisperer because he's the only one who bothers to comfort the widow at a crime scene. Oh, hi Betsy. And then in one scene he pulls a good cop, bad cop routine and the entire precinct acts like cavemen watching him discover fire. It is the most well-known interrogation tactic of all time. You geniuses have genuinely never heard of it before. Season 3 also marks the transition from Harry in flashback to Harry appearing as a ghost for Dexter to chat with. The flashbacks were already feeling superfluous in Season 2, and his adoptive dad's transition to an incorporeal form hasn't changed much. Instead of a snappy internal monologue with some clever wordplay from Dexter, we'll now have an elongated scene where dad plays devil's advocate, frequently contradicting his former advice in the process. I hate it, but get used to it, because it's here to stay. Whoever James Remar's agent is, he must have gotten him an ironclad episode appearance contract.
Where are you now, when I really need you?
This is just your memory. I can't give you any new information.
I have one more thing on season 3, and I couldn't figure out a way to work it in organically. Just wanted to mention Jimmy Smits stabbed a guy for real while filming the kill scene because he grabbed the wrong knife prop. Fortunately, the actor survived, but if you were wondering why Jimmy's thrust seems a little gentle in the finished product, I'd imagine that's why. Enough of season 3, it's time for us to look at the season that is frequently held up as the best, and with very good reason. Enter the Trinity Killer.
You think this ends here? It doesn't!
It does for you.
John Lithgow didn't take home the Emmy for his role as Arthur Mitchell for nothing. The Trinity Killer is weird, intimidating, nuanced, and creepily pitiable.
What happened to her?
She died. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault.
Walking in on his sister in the shower at the age of 10, he startled her into a fall which shattered the shower's glass door and sliced her femoral artery, killing her. This loss drove his mother to suicide and his father to drink. His father would regularly abuse him for his presumed perversion, costing them their family, ultimately goading Arthur into beating his father to death with a hammer. Now the Trinity Killer terrorizes the country once a year, slicing a woman's femoral in the bathtub, forcing a mother to jump to her death by threatening her children, and then finally bludgeoning a father of 2 to death.
I mean, this guy was a real jerk.
In 2019, the Trinity Killer ranked number 32 on Rolling Stone magazine's list of best TV villains. He was beaten out by the Yellow King from True Detective's first season, which I just chalk up to recency bias. Obviously, True Detective was tackling much headier themes and indulged in more avant-garde cinematography as a whole, but better villain? Glenn Fleshler was just sort of a random guy on a riding mower, kind of a subversion the show was going for, that it would just be some random guy as the villain. Trinity was a presence. Although he was beat out by Gyp Rossetti from Boardwalk Empire. That I'm okay with.
Do you have any idea who the fuck I am? Do you? Do you?
Trinity is the latest object of Dexter's obsession, but Dex is so preoccupied with juggling a baby, his job, his murderous hobby, and moving in with his wife that he's losing his touch. When Dexter learns that the Trinity Killer has a stable home life and the perfect family, he decides to buddy up to Arthur to learn how he does it before chopping him up. After all, Trinity just finished his last kill cycle, so he should be laying low for the foreseeable future. How bad could things really get? Oh my god. Between the more thriller-inspired Escape the Lawman plot in Season 2, the sequel to I Love You Man in Season 3, and Dexter growing more and more human as the series progresses, the show lost a bit of its creepiness that stemmed from Dexter's cold demeanor and the Ice Truck Killer's grotesque, fantastical crime scenes. Trinity's here to bring all that roaring back. He has a way of being this stern, moody father in his personal life, but then transforming into either a controlling freak or a wounded child while with his victims. He's also unpredictable. With each new eerie revelation about his past, his present, or his sinister methods, the show is able to keep audiences glued to the screen. While initially handing out meaningful advice to Dexter to help him manage life with children, things take a turn toward the freak show when Dexter invites himself over for a Mitchell family Thanksgiving in one of the show's standout episodes. Here we see the dream life Dexter wanted to emulate was nothing more than a facade held up by the family's terror. The Trinity household is less It's a Wonderful Life and more It's a Good Life. Arthur abuses his son, manipulates his terrified wife, and keeps his daughter locked in a room meant for a small child. And when his underage daughter offers Dexter weird sexual favors in exchange for rescuing her, this dinner party starts to send a shiver up my spine. It's equal parts creepy and blankly hilarious, and if it weren't for the occasional cutaways to side plots, the tension might have been more than I could bear on a first viewing.
Thank you all for the comfort of your home.
Where no one said they were thankful for me. Did you, Jonah? Did you say you were thankful for me, Jonah?
I am so thankful for you, Arthur.
Shut up, cunt.
Our awkward family dinner kickstarts another cycle where Dexter learns to his horror that despite the name, Trinity actually kills in 4s, starting things off by dropping a 10-year-old in a body bag into wet concrete. The race to find the missing child while Arthur plays trains with him and starves him in a Cold War bunker is creepy and exhilarating as hell. And we see another glimpse of Dexter's evolving humanity when he elects to save the child instead of finishing off Trinity. This escape is fine, but there are a lot of times before and after where the writers contrive ways for Trinity to cheat death again and again. It's more playfully cat and mouse in the moment, even if it makes a few of the middle episodes feel like stalling. But when you see how things end up, oof, Dexter, I bet you really regret some of those choices you made.
If I were you, I'd give up vigilantism. You're not very good at it.
I'll get to the ending in a bit, but first let's cover the side plots. Aside from the boilerplate vacation murderers, we're getting served up 3 romance plot lines. LaGuerta and Angel, ew. A love triangle with Deb, her CI from last season, and Back for the Dead Frank Lundy. And finally, Quinn and Hot Pants reporter lady Christine. Christine is perfectly average as an intrepid but backstabbing reporter, despite her presence only serving as evidence that Quinn is, indeed, not as intelligent as the show pretends, but she's spiced up significantly by the revelation that she's Trinity's daughter. This is mostly a solid development. Her character has a lot more to chew on, desperately trying to impress Daddy without realizing how much of a manipulator he is, and smugly thinking she's one step ahead of the lawmen when she's actually one step behind. But things do start to veer into Chuck territory. Spy comedy Chuck had a habit of guest stars and love interests getting revealed as secret agents so consistently that it stopped being a reveal at all. Anytime a new character pops up, you just wait for the other shoe to drop and their sinister spy connections will be unmasked. Dexter is now veering into that territory. Season 1, Deb's boyfriend turns out to be the killer. Season 2, Dexter's girlfriend turns out to be the killer. And now Season 4, and Quinn's girlfriend turns out to be a killer. I know it's Florida, but still, that's coincidentally a lot of crazies for one sleeping circle.
It's okay. I made it look like another crime spree. The vacation murders, the police had no idea.
At least on a rewatch, only LaGuerta and Angel come across as utterly pointless. Quinn, Deb, Lundy, and even the vacation murderers all ultimately play into the Trinity investigation in surprising ways. By the end of the season, Dexter gets his hands on Arthur and puts him out of his misery, only to discover upon returning home that he was too late. After deducing his true identity, Arthur paid a visit to Dexter's wife, making her the Trinity killer's final victim. Now with his own son bathed in blood, Dexter's murderous urges have birthed another tragedy, mirroring the one that casts a shadow over his own life. Cut, print, that's a wrap. This was the perfect ending to the series. I mean it. I mean it. You can stop watching the show right now. It's a shocking, fantastic, and perfectly set up ending to a season that would still be the best in the show's run, even without this final twist. Showrunner Clyde Phillips and head writer Melissa Rosenberg would lead the series after this episode, with Chip Johansson taking over for Season 5, and Scott Buck being responsible for the disastrous final 3 seasons. As for me, I committed to this project and I have a duty. Let's wander into the Phillips-less world of Season 5. Naturally, Season 5 picks up right where we left off, the crime scene of Rita Morgan's murder. I mean, imagine if they did something like a time skip immediately after the main character loses their spouse. What a stupid idea that would be. The writers smartly cling to the notion that Dexter is an emotionless being. Instead of sinking into despair at the death of his loved one, he realizes he can fall right back into his old murderous habits from bachelorhood.
My bride! My one true love. Wait a tick. That means I'm single again! Oh, behave!
Dexter coldly informs his children and step-parents that Rita is dead, while wearing Mickey ears they brought back for their parents from Disney World, no less, in a pitch-black comedy scene that is a masterpiece of awkwardness. Then he basically decides to skip town. The FBI is looking for a Trinity killer they'll never find. Quinn is suspicious Dexter is possibly his wife's killer. He can't even be bothered to think of a eulogy for his dead wife, and all of Dexter's remaining family are desperately expecting him to have an emotional reaction that would require actually having a soul. Life is a mess, but nothing he can't handle by running away. The show often does these miniature case studies of how someone as removed from human connection as Dexter reacts to typical human experiences. You got dating, bachelor parties, drug addiction. They try to tackle religion in Season 6, which is a nightmare we'll get into in due time. But watching Dexter squirm, or rather not squirm, in reaction to a death that was a gut punch to both the rest of the cast and the audience is one of the smartest things the show did with the character. He ultimately breaks down when he realizes he can't run away from the life he had, killing a random guy who was rude to him and weeping at a seaside gas station. And again, this is an effective payoff. As much as it would be convenient to still be the soulless monster he was when he met Rita, the feelings he developed falling for her mean he has to face his new tragic reality. He used to be a shark, and she and the kids unsharkulated him.
I was just thinking about Rita, how much
How much you miss her?
How much I lied to her.
My only complaint is that this is some super juicy material and the show rushes right through it. In the space of one episode, we have Dexter in shock at the crime scene, Dexter breaking the news to the family, Dexter running away, and Dexter coming back to deliver a teary-eyed eulogy. I don't see why we couldn't have stretched this out to a two-parter and ended episode 1 with Dexter sailing off into the sunset for our cliffhanger. This season definitely takes its sweet time with other plots later on, and not exactly in a good way. Hell, we get a two-parter of him trying to take down hick roadkill cleanup bad guy Boyd Fowler immediately after this. You're telling me our expert Dexter can't 86 this rube in a single time slot? Our A-plot for this season is found in Boyd's basement. Boyd's latest victim, Lumen Pierce,
Lumen, stupid fucking name,
is still alive and now a witness to Dexter's particular brand of justice. Dexter nurses her back to health, gradually wins her trust, and buys her a first-class ticket out of the Sunshine State, electing instead to stay in town and seek revenge on the remaining members of Boyd's rape gang, led by motivational speaker Jordan Chase. She asks Dexter to teach her the ways of the code. Apparently, Dexter has stopped giving a shit since the days of Miguel Prado, because instead of going on a little shopping trip where they buy other supplies to mask the kill tools, he's just like, go to the store and buy some polyurethane sheets, bleach, garrote wire, a bunch of knives and ski masks. Fuck it, it's Florida. Here, use my credit card to make the purchase while you're at it. Be sure to be seen by any security cameras and just stuff it in your back seat instead of the trunk so any passing PIs will immediately clock it. And then, yeah, that's kind of the plot. Dex and Lumen team up, work their way through the members of the rape gang one by one, and form a two-person Voltron along the way. The Barrel Girl rape gang is the least compelling of the show's main villains so far, unless you count Lila. And I think it's just because the show isn't willing to ham it up enough. Leader Jordan Chase is a fun villain with his blatant psychopathy and deliciously goofy, sinister catchphrase.
Tick, tick, tick. That's the sound of his life running out.
But everyone else in the gang is just meat puppets to get bashed in by the dynamic duo. Now that, in theory, I don't have a problem with. In execution, if we're making this season I Dex on your grave, we need two things. More visceral and schlocky kills, and more hateable baddies. Obviously, their crimes are heinous, but the gang is so unmemorable. This ain't exactly Batman's Rogues Gallery or The Order of No Quarter. All kills but one are just your typical kill room stuff, but since the villains established are just yet another barrel gang guy, these villains of the week wind up feeling less compelling than the more flavorful one-offs from seasons past.
You gonna rape and kill me?
What is it with you and rape? No one's raping anyone.
Our B story, not including the Santa Muerte killings, because honestly, it's just another boilerplate Deb investigates gang murders plot, just like the Vacation Murderers and the Skinner, and frankly, they're all blurring together for me at this point. The other B story follows Quinn as he becomes suspicious of Dexter and employs wildcard PI Stan Liddy to dig up the truth. Peter Weller brings a lot to the table as Stan, though underutilized, he's my favorite part of the season, especially when Quinn tries to call off the dogs because he's porking Deb and Stan's like, nah, I'm having too much fun with this shit.
I don't know. Things go wrong every day.
Fucking motherfucker!
In case you haven't noticed, Season 5 rehashes a lot of stuff from Seasons 2 and 3. Dexter trains an understudy with a thirst for vengeance, just like in Season 3. Deb investigates gang-related killings perpetrated by a boring nothing villain wielding a machete, just like in Season 3. And former cop attempts to get back on the force by proving Dexter's guilt, just like in Season 2. And just like Season 2, the end of that plotline sucks. In the penultimate episode, Liddy feels he has all the dirt he needs on Dexter and snatches him up at an incredibly inopportune time, handcuffing him in the back seat and demanding a confession if Dex wants Lumen to not have to face the music as well. It's all the makings of a great cliffhanger, but Stan the Man doesn't even live to see the credits. If you were wondering what clever way Dexter would escape, if he'd start giving a shameful confession while secretly working on a tactic to Houdini his way to freedom, no such luck. Dexter just stabs Stan Liddy instantly, despite his bonds.
What do you say?
The very next episode, Jordan Chase is defeated in the exact same manner. Yeah, I really wasn't sweating when Jordan had the two of them tied up in the finale. Dex can break these cuffs. After Jordan's demise, all that's left is to wrap things up in the most contrived way possible. Quinn gets picked up for the murder of Stan Liddy because a drop of Stan's blood wound up on his shoe. So there's the seeds for a side plot next season as he works to exonerate himself from behind bars. Nope. Dexter fudges the blood test to clear Quinn's name that same episode. So let me get this straight. Quinn suspects Dexter killed his wife. A PI shows him photos of Dexter dumping garbage bags in the ocean under cover of darkness. Then that PI winds up dead moments after calling Quinn about a break in the case. The main suspect fudges the blood report to get you off, and your reaction is, thank you? No questions asked? Even if the implication of this scene is supposed to be, I know you killed Stan Liddy, but thanks for clearing my name, I don't think I'd be saying thank you. I'd be saying, I know you spared me. I promise I'll never say a word. Please don't fucking kill me and my whole family.
Thank you.
Lumen is basically like, I have to go now. It was really fun when we were murdering people together, but I'm out of people I want to murder. And Deb nearly walks in on Dexter killing Jordan Chase, but stops herself because she believes they are morally justified for killing him due to Chase's multiple rapes and murders. I guess I don't get why they even bothered having her find Chase's hideout if nothing was going to come of it. They didn't need her to swoop in and save the day because no bondage performed by mere mortals can hold Dexter, and they didn't have any intention of her making a meaningful discovery. It was just a fake out, just like Liddy, just like Quinn, and this is the moment the reality starts to sink in. Even if someone catches Dexter, even if damning evidence comes to light, the writers are never going to have the balls to put Dexter on the run. There will always be a reason for the characters to give him a pass or go from suspicious to trusting in a heartbeat. Also, the writers can avoid making this once daring and experimental television show go to any sort of place that is daring or experimental. The question now is, how do you get the tension back when the audience is always going to call the writer's bluff going forward? Who fucking cares? Let's go on to the next season. With the premiere of Season 6, the third and final showrunner for the series takes the helm. His name is Buck, and he's here to fuck up the show. Scott Buck's voice is immediately present in a debut episode that plays out like an embarrassing fanfic. Dexter attends his high school reunion where he has to beat off women with a stick, gets blown by the prom queen, and gets to kill the big jock on campus because conveniently he murdered his wife for no good reason. As if that weren't wish fulfillment-y enough, out of nowhere the jock is revealed to be a devout Christian on the kill table, and he flies off into a ridiculous screed about how Jesus will save him and smite Dexter. Also, Dexter can tip his fedora and say, nothing personal, kid, and dunk on the stupid Bible thumper.
You cannot kill me, for God is a mighty fortress.
No, please stop.
And I have been washed in the blood of the Lamb, and He will protect me!
Hey, Dexter writers, what exactly was the point of that shit? Oh no, don't tell me. So we did Brotherhood in Season 1, Friendship in Season 3, Family in Season 4, and now our theme for the 6th season is going to be religion. Dexter writers, are you sure you want to tackle this subject matter? When fatherhood got a little too hairy in Season 5, you basically made his children disappear in a poof of magic. So I'm asking for your own sake if you actually want to commit to this.
Tireless crusader for the virtues of atheism.
Okay, I guess we're committed now. Lord beer me strength. What sort of deep insights into the world of religion will Dexter take us through? Although, let's be honest, like all shows exploring the ills of religion, we will solely be examining Christianity. Basically, at the end of the day, all Dexter has to say is, religion is good when it makes people do good things and bad when it makes people do bad things. Gee, how insightful. I remember coming to that revelation myself when I was 8. This theme is quote-unquote explored with our new guest stars. The reformed killer turned Jesus freak brother Sam is the yin, and a pair of serial killers trying to enact the end of the world are the yang. This may just be because I used to be the drummer in a Christian rock band, but the brother Sam character is nothing but a cliche to me. Reformed sinner with a dark and scummy past who now peddles generic Sunday school messages about forgiveness, and the darker and scummier the past, the more clout they can command. While Dexter spends most of the season being euphoric and punching holes in the strawman beliefs of his show's resident Christians, somehow the hoary old reformed sinner chestnut managed to genuinely move him. Except not really. Ultimately, the point of this arc would be that Dexter learns to let things go and not kill people, but when Brother Sam asked Dex on his deathbed not to give his own killer the smoke, Dexter is just kind of like, I'll do my best, but if he's annoying, then his ass is grass.
Yeah! Who won the lottery? I did!
And with that guy's death, it's like, okay, so the Brother Sam stuff basically had no point then. Also having no point are the one-off kills of the week. I haven't really gone into it yet, but most seasons aren't just Dexter on the hunt for the one big bad. A few kills of the week are peppered throughout to keep things interesting. In the past, the show went to great pains to keep these kills from ever becoming stale. So instead of everything going smoothly, Dexter will be investigating a corrupt cop, and then she'll start using her connections to put him on the back foot, or Dexter gets in a car crash while transporting the body and has to scramble to make the evidence disappear. But things are starting to get routine and worse, contrived. We already have the high school jock basically openly confessing to murdering his wife within 5 seconds of conversing with Dexter. It also didn't help that last season Dexter discovered the Barrel Girl gang because he noticed a drop of blood in his moving van, and on a hunch he followed it up, and of course the blood was related to a millionaire-backed rape gang operation, and not just from a cut finger someone got shifting a dresser. Probably the worst example of contrivance is Dexter showing up to a crime scene, noticing the victim's tooth was slightly dislodged, and then assuming a serial killer from the 80s has moved to Miami and is now coming out of retirement. Not only is Dexter right about these assumptions, of course, but literally the first person Dexter meets in the first retirement home he investigates just so happens to be one of the nation's most notorious serial killers. Oh, and every single one of these people now wears their guilt on their sleeve and keeps trophies from their crimes in big glass display cases in the center of their house. It doesn't feel like Dexter is clever tracking these people down, it doesn't even feel coincidental. It actually feels like if Dexter suspects someone is a murderer, then the universe wills it to be so. This even carries over to the main villain of the season, Travis Marshall, played by Colin Hanks, who is completely phoning this in compared to his much better work in the much better series Fargo.
Hello, whore.
Dexter is able to tell he is the Doomsday Killer's apprentice just by the look on his face in a crowd. Really. That's how he finds this guy. And then completely uncharacteristically, Dexter decides that being an accomplice to murder is not enough reason to try to ice somebody, and instead elects to let Travis go so he can track down the real Doomsday Killer. Damn, I bet Jordan Chase wishes he could have got that deal. So that's all there is to this season. It's Baby's first 7 as the Doomsday Killer's attempt to bring about the end of the world with a series of sacrifices based on the Cliff Notes version of the Book of Revelations. Also, the show does an incredibly poor job of concealing that the Doomsday Killer is hardcore fight clubbing and Edward James Olmos is a figment of Travis's imagination. That being said, it wouldn't have made the premise any better if the twist were less predictable. I found that during the season there were 2 types of people watching. The ones that instantly caught on that the Doomsday Killer was all in Travis's head and didn't care, and the ones that didn't see it coming until it was revealed, but also didn't care. As explained late in the season, Travis is basically just an insane person who wants to set off a dirty bomb, which is a wasted opportunity. It's not exactly a commentary on the different facets of Christianity if your villain is just a schizophrenic off his meds. The Edward James Olmos popsicle in his freezer didn't matter. He could have imagined his dog was telling him to kill people, or that the radio was giving him tips on how to commit crimes. In fact, those would have made for a much more entertaining 12 hours of television. But if instead of being a mentally ill maniac, he's supposed to be a crazed religious nutter, at the very least give him some backstory and establish his beliefs. One of my favorite TV villains was the pseudo-religious nutter in the first season of Preacher. Odin Kincannon was just an insane person following his own made-up deity, but it all jived with the character's history. His beliefs put him at odds narratively and thematically with our heroes. At least it wasn't ethos.
What kind of a God wants to tear down a church?
The God of meat, of course.
The God of meat.
At the end of the day, there's very little to do watching season 6 of Dexter except learn to stop caring and laugh at the unintentionally funny moments. Dexter has always been sort of prone to unintentionally funny moments.
There's just one last person I need to kill.
But this season most consistently had me chuckling when I wasn't supposed to be. The reveal that the villain is all a dream has always been a massive joke to me, but there's also stuff like Sam requesting Dexter be given a Bible at his funeral, but then the efficient gives Dexter Sam's actual Bible, soaked in blood from Sam's violent death. Buddy, I'm sure Sam meant give Dexter a Bible, not give Dexter this Bible even if the pages are stuck together with my own blood. Hardest laugh of the season by far was the reveal of Travis's final painting. He's real pissed at Dexter for foiling his latest plans. He grabs his brush and makes a little touch-up to his depiction of the end times. I was watching this episode on the exercise bike at the gym, and when I saw the finished product, the amount of laughter I flooded that gym with, you wouldn't believe.
This is borderline experimental.
Okay, I'm being very mean to this season. Let's talk about the things that I liked. I like that at crime scenes, Dexter actually has clever blood spatter analysis now. He explains stuff beyond just, if it were that weapon, it would have an X pattern, not a Y pattern. I like that sort of clever real-life stuff tucked into a show. Feels like it'll help me get a Jeopardy question right one day. And as fan-servicey as it was, I guiltily enjoyed the Greatest Hits episode, where Dexter hallucinates the ice truck killer and goes on a road trip with him to kill Trinity's son, who the brothers suspect is reenacting his father's crimes. Yes, it is a very desperate episode premise to get longtime fans to keep watching this train wreck, but you'd never catch me saying it isn't dumb fun.
Hope you took a souvenir.
Alright, what subplot shit do I need to get through before we can move to season 7? Quinn gets dumped by Deb and becomes a raging alcoholic. The end of the arc has Angel trying to transfer him, but Quinn avoids being transferred by going to rehab. Angel gets all pissed off and says, "Rehab is for people with actual problems. You're just trying to avoid transferring." I mean, I'm pretty sure this dude shows up to work drunk off his ass every single day, Angel. At one point, he blacked out and lost his gun while having sex with an elderly waitress. How much more real does this problem need to be? Deb makes Lieutenant because the writers don't know what to do with her character. She gets sabotaged by LaGuerta constantly, but then LaGuerta always has a convenient excuse for why her sabotage was actually secretly helpful. Knowing that next season the writers will be putting in work to rehabilitate the audience's image of LaGuerta, this Snape in the first Harry Potter movie, "I'm secretly your ally" bullshit does not help their cause. And the absolute nadir of subplots, in the last couple episodes, Deb's therapist is like, "Do you want to fuck your own adopted brother?" And Deb's like, "Damn, you're right. Now that you mention it, I do. Put me in the washing machine, coach. I'm ready." We all get different things from therapy, but I definitely want a second opinion. This plot thread is utterly baffling. Even more so because Michael C. Hall and Jennifer Carpenter were married and divorced in real life. What, does someone in the writer's room just hate her? Did she lose a bet?
You're making it sound like I want to be with him or something.
Stumped us.
I'm very uncomfortable.
Fortunately, the big cliffhanger this season puts the brakes on that little forbidden attraction. Deb catches Dexter in the act as he takes out the Doomsday Killer. How will the writers sweep this revelation under the rug and maintain the status quo at all costs? Tune into season 7 to find out. Deb finds Dexter right as he's giving Travis the old stabby, and he tries to play it off as a one-time sort of thing. In order to maintain that lie, he can no longer send Travis to a watery grave, and agrees to much more sloppily burn the church down. Thinking he may not be in too much trouble with his sister, he comes home the next day to find that she's discovered the blood slides. After walking Deb through the shock of it all, the show basically turns things into an addiction narrative. Again. His sister is now his sponsor, and she's keeping tabs on Dex and his murderous urges. This is a fine development on paper. In the early days of the show, a lot of the complications from Dexter's kills involved his attempts to appear normal with a cover story personal life. After Rita's death, the kids were shunted away to live with relatives and almost entirely forgotten about. And even baby Harrison became a non-entity ever since Dexter met Angel's sister Jamie, who he now owns as a 24/7 live-in slave nanny. So on top of having zero people concerned about his whereabouts at all times and a seemingly limitless supply of PTO, the writers also have forgotten that he's supposed to be personable and polite to his coworkers. You know, the sort of tactic described by the con men in Ocean's 11.
Be specific but not memorable. Be funny but don't make him laugh. He's got to like you and then forget you the moment you've left his sight.
I miss the good old days of Dexter misunderstanding people's jokes and passing out donuts with a plastered-on grin. These last few seasons just don't bother, both in terms of the script and Hall's performance. He seems exactly like the weirdo he's supposed to be pretending he isn't, but his coworkers just love him to death regardless.
I'm just, creep motherfucker.
Back in seasons 1 through 4, there was still the implication that Dexter killing people was bad, and that continuing to behave that way was going to bring pain and death to innocent friends, family, and coworkers around him. The writers of season 7 don't handle Dexter's serial killer ways as if they are bad, and don't even make him out to be an anti-hero. Dexter is treated like a superhero, and basically the whole arc of the Deb thing is to prove she's stupid for putting her faith in the law. Dexter is so much smarter than everyone, and always right about everything, and in order to make that case, the writers throw increasingly implausible red tape at Lieutenant Deb, letting an immunity deal stand, even though you got a confession that the person lied under oath to get the deal. Looks like Dexter has to kill him instead, letting a confessed murderer back on the streets that day on a Miranda loophole and not even trying to take them to court. Looks like Dexter has to kill him instead. And to round out the Dexter wish fulfillment saga, this year we meet Hannah McKay, better known as the worst love interest in television history.
Go out with me. Come on, I'm just gonna keep stalking you.
"Hey Dexter, quit stealing my move!" Hannah is a serial poisoner whom Dexter starts making moon eyes at while vetting her. Basically, after waking her up on the kill table, he decides to penetrate her in that way instead of penetrating her in the other way. And just like Quinn in season 3, the writers are desperately telling us how understanding and sympathetic and awesome and hot Hannah is. Meanwhile, we aren't seeing any of those things. Okay, we're seeing the last one, I'll give them that. Instead, the character as portrayed in the series is a compulsive liar and serial murderer who seems to have really convenient excuses for why all her poisonings are actually super duper justified, all delivered via a completely wooden, atrocious performance by Yvonne Strahovski. I used to think she never emoted in Chuck and Mass Effect because she was playing super spies with ice water in their veins, but apparently, it's actually because she can't act. Personally, I'd even take Lila over Hannah. She was one crazy bitch, but at least she was ride or die. Not Dexter though. One little attempted murder of a family member and Dex will go halfway around the world to put Lila in a body bag, but Hannah tries to kill Deb and Dexter is completely emotionally devastated, turning her over to the police.
Figured it would kick in while Price was on the road. A convenient auto accident.
Oh, my mistake. She wasn't trying to kill Deb. She was actually trying to kill Deb and God knows how many other innocent people in an engineered car accident so that Deb's murder would be more difficult to trace to her. Now that's the kind of girl you bring home to mama. Gee, Dexter, you sure can pick 'em. Anyways, Hannah gives the cops the slip using the oldest trick in the book. Ingest a magic fictional potion that makes it look like you're in a coma, but you're not, so that you can escape the hospital, where you are completely unguarded despite being under arrest for murder. I'm nitpicking and being too negative, aren't I? There's a handful of people out there that will tell you Season 7 was actually a late series renaissance period in the show, and when they do so, they'll point to one element: Isaac Serco.
There is one more way to kill a man, but it is as intricate and precise as a well-played game of chess.
The premise for this season, presumably written by Scott Buck and Cran on the back of his bar napkin after his 13th beer, is what if Dexter fought a James Bond villain, and Isaac Serco is just that. Pissed at Dexter because he rolled up and smoked his gay lover, this hitman is going full Terminator and will stop at nothing to settle Dexter's hash. Ray Stevenson has a lot of fun in the role, culminating in a corny but endearing team-up in the end to take on the mob when both characters wind up with targets on their backs. When I start to bitch about Dexter obliterating my willing suspension of disbelief, at least know that I can roll with the punches and enjoy when the show indulges in some schlocky fun. Just like Dexter, Isaac was having a fling with someone who it was completely unreasonable and reckless to love. The writers are going for this thematic love makes you do foolish things angle, but all I can think is stop trying to convince me there's any good reason to like or trust Hannah at all. Not even the power of love could make me eat breakfast cooked by a serial poisoner I attempted to murder a week ago. All good things must come to an end though, so Isaac meets his demise with 3 episodes left in the season, not so secretly due to Ray Stevenson's scheduling issues. This leaves us totally narratively adrift, and the last 3 episodes are an exercise in aimless frustration, culminating in LaGuardia's attempt to unmask Dexter as the Bay Harbor Butcher. Let's get to that plot line. I mentioned at the end of Season 5 that we know Dexter is never going to be caught. That's not just because the writers are that predictable, but it's also because the only competent investigators have been killed off. They weren't as bad in the early seasons, but by this point in the show's run, the Miami Metro Homicide Department is probably the most corrupt and incompetent task force in the universe, and Maria LaGuardia is king of the short bus. If I committed a murder and had to pick one fictional character to investigate it and see if I could get away with it, I'd pick Maria LaGuardia, with Joey Quinn as a close runner-up. Even in seasons where they try to have her doing something smart, they make her look stupid. Like in Season 3 when she knows the description of a killer's car, and she's comparing it to Miguel's car registration, and instead of just letting the audience assume she came to the correct conclusion, they have her circling the blatantly relevant details. So since LaGuardia can't believably do anything clever to catch Dexter, Dexter has to do some monumentally stupid stuff instead. Started off with him killing Travis at an active crime scene, which is almost as brazen as his impromptu airport execution later in the season. Then he says let's torch this place, and despite there being zero urgency to burn the church down, he instructs Deb to go get gas from the nearest gas station possible, all but ensuring that there will be security camera footage placing them right outside the crime scene with no plausible alibi. Of course, since LaGuardia is a super genius, she doesn't hit on this idea to check local gas stations until the season finale, and the first thing she does instead is release a target too juicy for Dexter to turn down so she can tail him to the kill room. Not a bad plan, LaGuardia, I'll give you props. You hit on the most effective tactic against Dexter employed by both James Dokes and Stan Liddy. Just tail Dexter at all times. Only hiccup is why do you feel the need to personally advocate for the release of the prisoner? Dexter is going to go about killing people anyways. It just seems like you're tempting fate and hoping Dexter won't put 2 and 2 together and realize this is a big honeypot. Which is exactly what happens.
Oh yeah, they said that there was a big push for my release from the captain of Miami Metro.
The target gets away, but Dexter stays on him, abducting him in broad daylight a few days later, aka the perfect time to unmask Dexter if you were tailing him, but for some reason, LaGuardia now isn't. Not sure why. As has been established in this season, being the captain of a homicide department that hasn't arrested anyone in 6 years comes with zero responsibilities and seemingly allows for endless time to personally investigate cold cases. By the way, that's not a joke. Miami Metro has its first successful arrest this season, when Dexter leaves one of his intended victims to get sent to jail instead as an apology gift to Deb. The last arrest before that was the 4th episode of Season 1, Carlos Guerrero, during a sting operation that our detectives had no knowledge of and barely any involvement in. Like I said, Miami Metro is fucking useless. LaGuardia arrests Dexter after he steals evidence, but can't make the charges stick, most likely because so much evidence has been stolen from the evidence room this season that the state of Florida has simply decriminalized the act to avoid prison overcrowding. The show makes a big deal like, oh, look what evil our secrets have wrought. Poor LaGuardia might get demoted. Cry me a river. The only characterization LaGuardia has besides being an absolute bitch and having zero investigative skills is that she's a careerist backstabber who only got where she is today through blackmail and a handful of tactical affairs. Then somehow, even though she's supposedly on thin ice, now she manages to pull a warrant for cell phone locations out of her ass that will track Dexter and Deb the night of the Doomsday Killer's death. Dexter says, screw it, I'm just gonna kill this bitch and make it look like a shootout with a gangster. My frame jobs are always perfect and everyone believes me all the time anyways, so I'll just lure LaGuardia to the docks and ice her. This plan is entirely predicated on LaGuardia showing up alone, so of course she does. Dexter injects LaGuardia with a tranquilizer, and the writers include this line.
I gave LaGuardia half a dose of M99, so it won't be found in her system.
Oh, okay, so if you just use a half dose, it doesn't show up. Total crap, sure. And I'm guessing half a dose doesn't leave a point of injection either? Oh, who am I kidding? Miami Metro is gonna be investigating the case. Just saw her fucking head off and staple a suicide note to her shirt in your handwriting. You'd probably still get away with it. I mean, he already plans to shoot the guy he stabbed with LaGuardia's gun through the stab wound to make it look like he was never stabbed.
I'll use her gun to shoot Estrada in his puncture wound,
destroying any evidence that he was stabbed.
I'm no forensic expert, but I'm pretty sure that shit don't work. They made a point to show he used like thin knife, but it's like got a curve to it and shit. And the guy bled out on a flat table, so obviously the wound was sustained laying down and the body was moved post-mortem. You used that exact trick last season to prove someone moved a body after an OD. Still just trying to wrap my head around. I'll shoot through the stab wound and it'll look like he was never stabbed. You'd have to have like really fucking good aim for that. Anyways, Deb shows up to stop Dexter from killing LaGuardia, and in true LaGuardia fashion, she displays no form of empathy or vulnerability and immediately starts bossing Deborah around, trying to get her to shoot her brother, leaving Deb with the choice of either shooting her brother or shooting LaGuardia.
Do it, Deborah. Shoot him. Do it. Shoot him!
Wait. Why does she have to shoot LaGuardia? Dexter's surely still planning to kill LaGuardia if Deb doesn't pull the trigger on him, so it's a perfectly valid option for Deb to leave the shipping container for a good little cry while Dexter finishes his cover-up. That still leaves Deb with plenty of guilt over morally compromising herself for next season to make hay with. Instead, Deb needlessly decides to shoot LaGuardia personally. All this accomplishes is creating additional forensic evidence to disprove Dexter's sloppy cover-up, but since the show wants to be done with storylines involving Dexter under investigation for good, it gets completely ignored next season. You just murdered your captain with your own personal police issue firearm, and the ballistics will not match either gun on the scene of the supposed shootout. You also shot her from an elevated height while she sat on the floor. Bullet trajectory is a big thing used in homicide investigations, including in this very show. The angle of Deb's bullet wound in Season 4 is how they deduced that the Trinity Killer had an accomplice, since the angle of the bullet was too low for someone of Trinity's height. Now you might say, knock it off, Slip. You're just nitpicking at this point and trying to poke holes in a show you don't like for not being 100% realistic. Stop acting like those joyless assholes at CinemaSins. I don't think I'm entirely doing that. There's a lot of stuff you can nitpick from the seasons I like that I didn't feel the need to rip the show over. Why do so many people have basements despite the water table in Florida making them borderline non-existent? Dokes attempts to call for help with a Motorola Razr phone while still in captivity, but those phones have a battery life of under 24 hours. How is the phone still charged? Rita's ex-husband Paul shows up drunk at her house while out on parole. Isn't drinking in excess a parole violation if your offense was related to an addictive substance? Why would they test if the murders were committed by a sword before checking if they were committed by a machete? Is it racist of me to assume the bladed tool used in a Venezuelan gang murder would be a machete? How was Dexter able to sabotage Trinity's car in the getaway? I guess we can assume it beat him to it and it was clever editing that we thought Arthur was getting away, but since it wasn't explicitly told to the audience, I'm counting it as a sin. How come so few computers are password protected? Why did Dexter put so little seasoning on those steaks? Why doesn't Dexter tell Lumen to buy other supplies to hide that they're buying kill tools like he did with Miguel? Oh wait, I actually did that one.
Is this ever gonna end?
I hope you see the distinction between those nitpicks and my earlier deconstruction of the LaGuerta investigation. I don't think it counts as nitpicking when you're asking me to completely ignore the entire investigative and forensic logic of a TV show about a forensic investigator, just because the writers didn't care, or worse, they forgot. The writers forgot so much this season. Case in point, Quinn had it out for Dexter in season 5. He totally suspected the guy was a murderer, and got so aggressive trying to prove Dexter's guilt that he got put on suspension for it. By LaGuerta. If I were LaGuerta, and I suspected Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher, Detective Quinn would be my first fucking call. And I know Quinn has his own stupid plotline going this season where he's banging yet another key witness and also has to cover up a murder by staging it as a shootout during which he also neglects to take into account the trajectory of the bullet, but by the finale the entire station is abuzz with LaGuerta trying to frame Dexter as the Bay Harbor Butcher. Quinn is the worst, most corrupt detective who has ever lived, but you'd imagine the accusation that Dexter is a serial killer who dumps garbage bags full of body parts in the ocean might just ring a bell and remind him of those photos Stan Liddy showed him 2 years ago, of Dexter dumping garbage bags into the ocean. Remember Stan Liddy? That PI that Dexter obviously murdered?
What's in the bags?
Something heavy. I'm thinking narcotics, maybe a body.
I have proof he's the Bay Harbor Butcher.
I'm thinking narcotics, maybe a body.
I have proof he's the Bay Harbor Butcher.
I'm thinking narcotics, maybe a body.
I have proof he's the Bay Harbor
I'm thinking narcotics, maybe a body.
Proof he's the Bay Harbor Butcher.
There's no convenient hand-wave excuse for this. The writers just forgot. There's a lot of that in the last 2 seasons. Deb never seems to put together that Dexter was there when she almost caught him killing Jordan Chase. 2 seasons ago, when she was A-okay with justified vengeance, which the writers also forgot about. Dexter claims he's never been as scared as when he thought he might never see Hannah again, except for when his mother died. So Deb's kidnapping at the hands of the ice truck killer, Doakes almost being discovered alive and exposing your secrets, Astor and Cody almost burning alive with you, Arthur Mitchell discovering your real identity. You were just cool as a cucumber through all of it, huh, Dex? Oh wait, no you weren't. The writers just forgot.
Heart disease is the leading cause of death in this country. Hell, it got me.
No, it didn't. You killed yourself. It was a huge plot point. They brought it up every season. Shut up, Harry. I'm tired of you showing up to explain things the audience already figured out. I'm amazed when Isaac takes Dexter to a gay bar. Dexter didn't have an internal monologue where he thinks, Isaac is more comfortable in a gay bar. Is it possible Isaac is gay? And then Ghost Dad shows up over his shoulder and says, Dexter, if Isaac is comfortable in this gay bar, it's possible he's a gay man. God damn it, I'm so sick of this show! Oh yeah, also there's a side plot where Angel retires and opens a restaurant. In 2013, the Sundance Channel aired a series called The Writer's Room. Each episode is a 30-minute roundtable discussion with the writers and occasionally stars of a grab bag of shows of wildly differing qualities. So we have episodes with the writers of the 6th season of Parks and Rec, the 3rd season of Game of Thrones back when it was in the middle of the hot streak, and the final season of Breaking Bad. On the other side of the coin, American Horror Story Coven, and the final season of Dexter. The Dexter special wasn't as aggravating as I expected it to be, mostly the team just reminiscing about the good old days, but it's pretty transparent throughout the discussion that Michael C. Hall is the only guy in the room who gets Dexter and can speak about the character articulately.
I don't know if you guys remember where I walked into the writer's room, and I was in there for like 3 minutes and trying to articulate something, and everybody was chiming in, and I had to leave. It was...
The rest of the crew, they pretty much confirmed my suspicions about the show's writer's room. They are perfectly content with Dexter makes a connection that eventually turns to disaster structure being repeated ad infinitum. They see Dexter as a badass superhero vigilante, and the one thing they can never agree on in the writer's room is everything else about the character of Dexter.
Everyone believes they know exactly who Dexter is and what Dexter's going to do. And so there are a lot of different opinions. The
pure wish fulfillment aspect. People love seeing bad people get their just desserts, and Dexter is the ultimate vigilante.
That's true.
The writers are asked the question, what's the stupidest idea anyone has ever pitched? And the response is, Harry faked his death and he comes back to be the obstacle in the final season. I mean, I think that could be pretty alright. It'd be the end of Ghost Harry at least. But anyways, ha ha ha, yeah, what a silly idea. Bringing someone in who understands Dexter's code and has a personal relationship with him. So goofy. Instead, the plot of the final season is bringing in a psychiatrist named Vogel who secretly helped Harry make Dexter's code and has absolutely zero personal relationship with Dexter.
You can't kill me.
Why?
Because I don't fit Harry's code.
Most dramatic TV series have some sort of endgame baked into their premise right from the pilot. Sometimes playing things out more or less exactly how the audience expected, if well executed, is still rewarding. Sometimes trying to outthink the audience and subvert our expectations winds up taking a big shit on everything that came before. But with Dexter's new pseudo-parental figure, what's the emotional thrust with that? What's the end game? The first half of the season sees Dexter working through Vogel's former patient list to find the brain surgeon, a serial killer who has been threatening her. None of her patients are the brain surgeon, but they all just so happen to conveniently also be serial killers, so Dexter can just work his way through the list each week. Doesn't feel like we're building to a grand finale crescendo. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon show that needs to fill 100 Case the Week episodes to make it to syndication. In return for aiding his new psychologist mommy, who tells Dexter he's a very special little boy, Vogel will help patch up Dexter's relationship with Deb. After needlessly killing LaGuardia, Deb has quit the force, turned to booze, turned to coke, and is basically just having a long-form breakdown.
I shot the wrong person in that trailer.
It was a shipping container. After a few sessions of pop psychology from a psychiatrist with a 100% rate of turning her patients into serial killers, Vogel gets Deb and Dexter to make amends. Okay, so that's not the end game either. The show made motions like Deb would be the one to bring Dexter down this year, but they're thick as thieves again. Dexter's taking on a budding kid serial killer in what's supposed to be a mentor-mentee relationship. I'm not sure which is worse, that the show thinks a twerp kid sidekick is a good idea, or that the show really doesn't care about the twerp sidekick plotline from square one and Dexter openly can't be bothered to help him. We even have the seed of a potentially good episode when the twerp sidekick attempts to emulate Dexter's kill tactics but totally botches it and they have to cover up the crime. Problem is, we never see the botched crime, and the cover-up is an afterthought. Pop him in the trunk and drop him in the swamp. It's not exactly Fargo. The kid's sidekick gets killed by the brain surgeon, which is supposed to be like, oh, now Dexter's gonna be super mad and want to settle the score. Except Dexter very blatantly did not give two fucks about kid's sidekick. Brain surgeon isn't endgame material because he's just another series arc villain with no greater significance. And he also has the least screen time of all villains in the show's run. And now even a protege is off the table for the endgame play. Maybe it's for the best. I can't think of a worse concept to run with than Dexter training a kid's sidekick, short of bringing Hannah back. No, it can't be. Jesus, Hannah's back? This is the end game. Hannah makes Dexter so fucking happy and full of butterflies that he realizes he'd rather run away with her than be a killer. So after her new boyfriend turns out to conveniently be evil so they can conveniently kill him in another wish fulfillment scene, Dexter explains the plot of the season to Hannah so far, and no, I am not joking. There's an episode where Hannah and Dexter take a road trip to help out Twerp, and for the better part of 5 minutes he dryly explains how he's fighting with his sister, Vogel is helping him out after their hunt for the brain surgeon, and he's taken on a kid's sidekick. The episode is titled, Are We There Yet? And the joke is so obvious that I assume they were trying to bait it out of critics. So I'm not going to do it. Harrison, Dexter's son, loves Hannah now and wants her to be his mommy after knowing her for 2 days. Also, Deb and Hannah are just hanging out having girls' night now. It takes all of one scene for Hannah to pass the speech check and make Deb, a former victim, into one of the gal pals. See, Dexter audience? All the characters love Hannah. Why can't you?
I can't believe I'm eating food you made.
It's not bad though, right?
Ha ha ha, I can't believe it. What a silly misunderstanding your attempted murder of me was. To conclude what can only laughingly be called the season arc, Dexter has to tie up loose ends before leaving Miami. But why? Why not run away right now? All his reasons for staying in town are either stupid or impossible to believe he would care about.
There's still so much to do. I gotta tell Batista I'm leaving.
Why do you have to give your boss notice? You are fleeing the country with a known fugitive who is being actively sought by U.S. Marshals, and you are their primary lead on how to find her. Wouldn't giving your boss notice out of courtesy send up a giant signal flare that Hannah is in town and preparing to flee the country, thus tipping off the Marshals? Yes, because that's exactly what happens.
I need to list my condo, sell my boat, my car.
2 scenes before this, you and Hannah retrieved her go bag, which contains $500,000 in cash. That is more than adequate money to live on. Why stay in town to do that when a storm is brewing that will ground all flights and put you at huge risk of discovery?
See Esther and Cody one last time.
Rita's kids have appeared in 1 episode over the last 3 years. I don't believe the character of Dexter cares about them, and I'm sort of convinced he would have forgotten they existed.
I have to kill Saxon first.
Oh yeah, by the way, Saxon is the real name of the brain surgeon, who it turns out is Vogel's son. Vogel later confronts Dexter and asks him kindly to not kill Saxon so she can help get her son treatment. She wants to teach Saxon the code so he will become less of a monster. Saxon is actively pleading with her to do this for him. This development proves Dexter didn't care about the other shit he said he had to do before leaving town, because as soon as he learns everything might work out with Saxon, he's suddenly ready to leave town immediately.
She doesn't want my help. So do I just walk away from this? We could leave for Argentina tonight.
Yeah, I knew you didn't care about Astor and Cody, you dirty fucking liar. But why do you care about Saxon? Even with Vogel asking not to kill Saxon, Dexter still claims he's quote-unquote super-duper worried about Vogel and needs to kill Saxon. His continued pursuit of Saxon's death, despite her wishes, is ultimately what leads to her death. which then leads to Dexter getting all mad at Saxon even more.
I'll kill Saxon, then leave Miami forever.
Oh, and the sooner you kill Saxon, the sooner we can get there.
Hannah and I don't have time to wait. I want him dead. Doesn't change anything for us, but I need to make sure it's taken care of before we leave. I kill Saxon. And then Hannah and Harrison and I get on a plane and start our new lives.
Okay, but why? Why do you need to kill Saxon? Hannah's magic cooter made you lose the desire to kill. Vogel wants to treat him, but you still want to kill him. After Vogel dies, he threatens to kill your family if you come after him, which only makes you come after him more. There's even a half-decent potential reason Dexter should need to kill Saxon before leaving that the show doesn't do. Dexter's ready to leave town, so he hands over damning evidence on Saxon that would lead to his capture. Then you play that scene after, where Saxon comes to his house and says, "If you mess with me, I'll kill your family." Dexter can play it all cool, wait for Saxon to leave, then as soon as the door shuts, he scrambles to get his kill tools, while his internal monologue goes, "Oh shit, I just put the police on Saxon. He's gonna know I'm responsible. My family is in danger now." Kind of exactly like the crawl space episode of Breaking Bad.
The money, Skylar. Where is the rest? Skylar, where is the money?
But instead, Dexter doesn't tip the cops off until after the threats. His take is more like, threatening my family if I don't leave you alone is a threat to my family. I better not leave that guy alone. Genius logic, Dex. The Brain Surgeon is blatantly a retread of the Ice Truck Killer from Season 1 in terms of narrative and themes. Let me walk you through my Dexter ring theory. Narratively, we have a series of grotesque crime scenes with preserved viscera from each victim, all done in the effort to jog the memory of a family member and get them to reunite. The defeat of an obvious red herring midway through the season, the revelation that the killer is a family member, and Deb being placed in mortal danger in the penultimate episode. Thematically, the Ice Truck Killer and the Brain Surgeon are both just psychotic children who were abandoned by parental figures and now envy Dexter because he got the guidance they never had. The message that if you're a fucked up, traumatized kid and you're tossed aside by your family, you're just going to become a fucked up, traumatized adult is more engaging than whatever the fuck they were going for with Doomsday 2 years ago. But this late game retread of the Ice Truck Killer with 3 added degrees of separation from Dexter is a tall order to get invested in. There's a brief humanizing moment for the Brain Surgeon where he puts that song that reminds him of his mom on the jukebox over and over and over, trying to add heart to a tearful reunion that never comes. A moment that's completely ruined by Dexter thinking aloud, why does he keep playing that song?
He's played that song 3 times. When is he gonna give up?
Dexter ultimately gets his hands on Saxon, realizes his urge to kill is fading, and decides to let Deb bring him in alive after she rejoins the Force. Saxon engineers an escape and shoots Deb instead, taking us into the finale. It's been 4 full days of Dexter, and the main event has finally arrived. Roll up, come see the freak. Let's talk about Remember the Monsters. Dexter, Hannah, and Harrison are about to flee the country via airplane when they notice a private investigator camped out in the terminal. Either this guy has really miraculous timing or he's been living in the airport for days waiting for them like he's Tom Hanks at the terminal. To get the PI off their backs, Dexter calls in a bomb threat and pins it on him. A seemingly foolproof plan with one unexpected flaw. If you call in a bomb threat, they shut the airport down. Hey Dexter, I've got an idea. Let the PI follow you while Hannah boards the flight. I know it's awkward to share a row with a stranger, but you don't have to fly together. Hannah is the one with the ticking clock element, not you. Now that a hurricane is stalling departures and the decision doesn't matter, Hannah and Dexter finally decide to split up. Dexter will stay in town to look after Deb while Hannah takes off with Harrison. Hannah's bus is boarded by the PI, but she easily avoids him by brazenly sticking him with a horse tranquilizer in front of about a dozen witnesses, none of whom care. Come on, set designer, at least make them 3-seater rows or something so she doesn't have to reach across the aisle to do it. That's absurd. Saxon plots to kill Deb, arriving at the hospital full of cops, and immediately gets arrested. The writers wanted to have their cake and eat it too, so we have 3 goodbye scenes with Deb. One as she's recovering in the hospital, one in flashback, and one as she suddenly turns into a vegetable. Dexter goes to see Saxon in his holding cell and kills him with a pen live on CCTV, even though life in prison because you were caught by Angel Batista is a fate worse than death for any criminal mastermind. Killing someone in police custody would typically bring all kinds of horror down upon your police department, especially given Dexter's personal involvement in the case. IA would be swarming the place. Oh wait, I forgot. This is Miami Metro. Of course, Angel and Quinn let Dexter walk out after he feeds them some bullshit excuse. Dexter then sails his boat to the hospital, which has boat parking, and pulls the plug on Deb, euthanizing her before Quinn gets the chance to molest her comatose body. This doesn't set off any alarms, despite it being a plot point earlier in the season that shutting off life support sets off alarms. Dexter says, "Oh, everything I do leads to people around me getting hurt." Now I'm sure Scott Buck is typing in the comments frantically right now. See, Slipmaker? There were consequences to his actions, but I say no. These are all consequences to only one action, letting Saxon live. Ironically, the only 2 times Dexter faced major consequences for his murderous lifestyle were the 2 times he chose not to murder someone. Dexter sails out in the world's most tranquil hurricane water and throws Deb overboard. Debris joined the force roughly 24 hours ago, but was still killed in the line of duty. She's probably entitled to a police funeral, and has friends and co-workers who care about her and want to honor her memory. There's Quinn, and Angel, and Matthews, and that black lady. But instead, Dexter throws her in the ocean because it's symbolic, then sails into Silent Hill, complete with PS1 graphics. Faking his demise, Dexter becomes a lumberjack, leaving his child in the care of a serial killer with a track record of offing family members who become mildly inconvenient to her. The writers of Dexter confirmed in interviews that this is supposed to be a happy ending. Hannah only kills when she needs to, and she and Harrison are going to have the time of their life gallivanting around Argentina as son and unexpected single mother. If that's the end you're going with, please have some common sense and don't have the master poisoner suggest let's go get food to the child immediately after learning of Dexter's supposed death. Have her say, let's go to the park, or something instead. How could you not understand the implications of that line?
Hey, how about we go get some ice cream, yeah?
Yeah? What flavor is it gonna be? Casey Anthony Crunch? So that's the end of Dexter. For now. I'm not entirely unsympathetic to the people who say all 8 seasons are retroactively ruined by where the show eventually winds up, but I still find plenty to love in seasons 1, 2, 4, and kind of 3 and 5. At the very least, it's fun to go back and watch all the Dokes scenes and the safe for network TV edits.
You give me the freaking creeps, you know that, Dexter?
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Forget you.
Clyde Phillips, the original showrunner, initially envisioned the series ending with Dexter receiving a lethal injection, the entire series having been his "that's me, you're probably wondering how I got in this situation" flashback. The ghosts of all his victims, both directly like the ice truck killer and indirectly like Rita, would appear to see him off. I know a lot of people are all about that idea, but that's kind of cheesy to me. I don't know. I think it'd be a pretty forgettable finale, but at least it wouldn't piss so many people off. Best I can do without completely rewriting the last 48 hours of the show. So actually, let's do that. Let's fix Dexter. First things first, seasons 6, 7, and 8. Goodbye. You've been erased from the timeline. Keep the visual style from the first season. I want to see sweat pits on every character, and I want Rita to look like a working single mother instead of a porn star. Season 1, keep as is. Season 2, Dexter kills Dokes himself. Lila catches him in the act and is horrified instead of enthralled, so he has to kill Lila. More proof that even weirdos are never going to accept him, which tees us up for Miguel next season. The unexpected arrival of Lila leads to his Dokes cover-up being sloppy, and when the FBI is content to call a case closed, everyone at Miami Metro is incredibly suspicious of both the circumstances and Dexter. This sets us up for increasing pressure now that most of his coworkers think he's a creep motherfucker, not just Dokes. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. Season 3, Miguel will successfully convince Dexter to kill his first target. And we're switching the target. Instead of defense attorney Ellen Wolf, Dexter kills LaGuerta. LaGuerta is the person most interested in clearing Dokes' name, which gives us another incentive for Dexter to break the code and kill her for his best friend. Also in Season 3, I'm replacing the Skinner with Isaac Serco. They both are just characters who want to kill Dexter because he killed someone they wanted alive. Isaac is just more interesting. All the Isaac fans can rejoice. Season 7 was purged from the timeline, but I spared him. Where are we going to find all that extra time for Isaac, you ask? Well, I seem to remember a certain plotline about Angel dating an undercover cop after meeting her during a sting, so we're tossing that plotline overboard like it's a comatose loved one. Season 4, keep as is, with one change that's probably going to ruffle some feathers. Trinity's going to get away. That way we have the best villain in the series in our back pocket. Season 5, take all the emotions Dexter goes through in the first episode and stretch them out across the entire season. Also use Dexter's rage at Trinity escaping to fuel his murderous vengeance against the Barrel Girl gang. Building on the suspicion after Dokes' death, we're going to have Quinn and Liddy investigating Dexter much more aggressively, and the finale is going to come down to a situation not unlike the one in the show. If you want to save Lumen and defeat Jordan Chase, you have to kill Stan Liddy. Except instead of killing Stan helping Dexter avoid suspicion, it'll do just the opposite. Dexter will know that Stan and Quinn don't have enough to go on, but he doesn't have time to wait for their case to fall on its face. To save Lumen, he has to escape, which means killing them right now. So it comes down to keep your mouth shut and let Lumen die to save your cover life, or kill Stan and Quinn to save Lumen. Of course, we'll have Dexter kill the pair, save Lumen, and then be confronted by Deb just like in the show, except this time she'll actually look behind the curtain and find out it's Dexter. Since she wanted to see Jordan Chase face justice, and because it's her brother, she'll agree to let them go, only to learn after the fact that her brother also killed her boyfriend. This tees us up for Season 6. Maybe we'll have Lumen stay, maybe life on the run is too hot for her and she'll abandon Dex. Deb will be kicked off the force for letting Dexter go, but not face jail time, leaving her to go off on her own quest to track down Dexter, possibly for revenge. We also need some kills of the week, don't we? How about a blonde serial poisoner named Hannah McKay? She'll be killed in Season 6, Episode 3, and have 0 lines of dialogue. As far as how I'd end the series, I don't know. I'd like to think I could do it better than Scott Buck. That may be underselling myself. I do think you'd have to actually try to do worse than remember the monsters. I keep going back to his statement from the writer's room.
Honestly, some viewers will love it and some viewers will not, but we're writing the finale that we think the show deserves.
In a way, I think he was right. Dexter was a good show. At times there were glimpses of a great show. But the final 3 seasons were so insultingly, appallingly awful that my goodwill toward the series has been exhausted. I have my fingers crossed that the miniseries will capture the potential for greatness the show had, or capture something new altogether. Maybe that's the ending the show needs. As for Remember the Monsters, after 3 years of misery, 3 years of burning down the good so you can double down on the bad, I agree with Scott Buck. It was the ending the show deserved.
Venus, if you will, please send a little girl for me to thrill, and let her want my kisses and my arms, and give her all the charms of you. Venus, make her fair